Hey everyone, what's going on? Jeff here from Films at Home, and today I'm doing another new release movie review. This movie just recently was put out on a streaming service called Epix, and I was able to check it out this weekend and wanted to share my thoughts with you. So in this review, we're going to talk about the movie Saint Maud, which is the newest sort of psychological thriller slash horror movie from A24. So to give a little background on Saint Maud, the trailers for this first appeared online in 2019, and there was a lot of hype given how A24 has been fairly successful with similar horror movies, at least what the trailer looked like. This had very similar vibes to things like Hereditary, Midsommar, The Witch, that type of thing that A24 has been very good at distributing, marketing, and ultimately, really producing these great movies and working with great directors, some even first-time directors. And so first-time director here, Rose Glass, her movie Saint Maud was supposed to come out in 2020, but obviously COVID ruined that and ruined the movie release schedule. And so what ended up happening is it was slowly released in the UK, and it's just making its way to streaming for the first time in the United States. So the movie was available on Epix. All I did was I basically just signed up for a free trial. You can get it right through your Amazon Prime Video account, add it as a channel to your Amazon Prime Video. And then I canceled afterward because honestly, I only wanted to watch Saint Maud and I don't want to have another subscription service on my plate. But you can get the free trial and watch this. It's also available on Blu-ray already in the UK, although it is region locked. So if you import it anywhere else, you're going to need a region free player. And it's coming to the US on Blu-ray, I would guess sometime late spring, early summer. Now, this movie centers around a young nurse named Maud, who's played by Morfydd Clark, who is really, really, really good in this movie. She hasn't been in a ton of stuff, but she is awesome in this movie. And she basically has a little bit of trauma in her past in the nursing world and has transitioned from like nursing at a hospital into private care. And she's taking care of this woman named Amanda, who used to be a minor celebrity, kind of famous dancer who's played by Jennifer Ellie, who is really, really good as well. They both give really great performances, and the movie basically centers around the two of them. There aren't a whole lot of other external characters. In fact, I would say 75% of the screen time is Maud by herself. Now, the movie is about an hour and 25 minutes long, and it is definitely another slow burn horror movie. Now, I call it a horror movie because it does have some really creepy scenes, but it's probably more of a psychological thriller. It really deals more with religion and mental health and how I think sort of religion can prey on those people with mental health or with past trauma to try to find a place for them to recover. But sometimes that works for people, and other times if you're really mentally ill or you have other things going on, religion can turn into a negative for that person. I think about the way that cults, prey on kind of vulnerable people. Sometimes religions do the same thing, whether they know it or not. And that's kind of what's explored here with this story is Maud becomes very religious. She's newly converted into, Christianity and God, and she's struggling with that because of the woman she's taking care of, Amanda, who's a little bit promiscuous and drinks a lot, and she feels like she has to save Amanda's soul. And so most of the movie really deals with kind of Maud's psyche and how she's dealing with this trauma and mental health and her interactions with Amanda. And it's really interesting because the first, I'd say, hour of the movie, you think you know how this is going to play out, and it's very slow, don't get me wrong, it's very dialogue driven, but you think you know how it's going to play out, and then sort of in the last 20 minutes, things start to shift, and it gets a little scary, and you go, okay, here's the horror element of this, and you really start to see Maud's psyche change. And that's where I really, really got sold on this movie. The first hour or so, I was really waiting for the payoff, as you do with most slow burn horror. But when I got the payoff, I thought it was great. This movie is I'm still thinking about this movie hours, days after having watched it. The last 10 minutes especially have some of the creepiest scenes and some of the most disturbing scenes that I've seen in any movie, horror or otherwise. And this is a movie where literally up until the last cut, up until the last second of the movie, it is freaky, scary, creepy, just really disturbing because of the way that religion and mental health are mixing and creating this sort of monster. And yeah, the final scene, the final shot of this movie is probably going to stick with me for a very long time. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I thought it was really, really good. Now, it's definitely, I heard some people saying this is like Hereditary, this is like really creepy. It's much less about that type of horror. I don't consider it much of like a Hereditary. It reminded me a lot more of First Reformed, which also dealt with sort of mental health and religion. But this one took on, an interesting take because it's very much a first-person driven movie. Maud is the main character. She is narrating parts of this movie and is talking to herself. Like, it's very driven from the person who's struggling with the mental illness and trauma. So that's a little bit different. And then the horror elements of it, yeah, sure, I can see where this turns into a little bit of a Hereditary moment at the end, or even a Midsummer, or even, The Exorcist, or things like that. Like, it gets into a very religious horror, which is kind of unique. It's horrific, it's disturbing to look at, but it's also very deeply rooted in religion and in Christianity, which, if you really think about it, can at times be very creepy. I was talking to my wife and I said, what's really creepy that people don't think about is like a realistic depiction of an angel, like a person with like wings busting out of its back and flying around. Like, that's actually terrifying. Now, if you draw it in the cartoonish sort of Bible way, it doesn't look as scary. But religion and the stories and the way that it affects people can be pretty scary. And that's what this movie kind of deals with, especially in that last 20 minutes. And throughout the movie too, there's a lot of intense scenes. They're kind of teasing you because there were multiple moments where I was like, oh, here it is. She's going to snap. She's going to snap. Something bad's going to happen here. And it builds and builds and builds that tension, but it doesn't pay off. And you're like, oh, okay, she hasn't snapped yet. And then you get to another scene 15, 20 minutes later, and you're like, oh, she's going to snap again. This person's in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And the tension builds and you lose it again. And so they're really teasing you throughout the movie. Rose Glass, the director, did a really good job with that, building the tension and getting you there and then dropping you back down and building it up again and dropping you back down. And then until you get to a point where it builds and builds and builds and it explodes and you're actually not ready for it because of all the other kind of false alarms throughout the movie. So I really, really like this. I would definitely recommend it. I put it in a top tier of A24 movies. It's definitely up there. Again, not going to be for everyone. If you don't like the slow burn psychological thriller, you're not going to like this movie. Simply put, the movie's not for everybody, but I'm really into that type of horror and thriller right now. I love the vibe that this movie gives. It has a really natural film look and feel to it, and it is superbly creepy and has it builds such great characters as well that you really get invested in, and that's what I really liked about it. So I would recommend it. I would give it like a solid, I'd say like a 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10, just because the ending really makes me think. Like, that last 20 minutes of the movie was really something special. And yeah, it was really good. I really would recommend it. Like I said, you can get a free trial from Epix. You just go to Amazon Prime and add it on. You can cancel it right after and they still give you 7 days. But that gives you a chance to check out the movie. The streaming quality, just on a quick note from Epix, at least on my TV, was pretty iffy. It's a dark movie and there's a lot of, there's a lot of banding issues, there's a lot of compression issues, there's a lot of moments where you lose a little bit of detail. I'm really excited to see this one on physical media, Blu-ray, because I think it'll be a much bigger improvement. But it's still worth a watch, especially right now with not much coming out. If you're into slow burn, psychological thrillers, horror, kind of, dealing with religion, if you like First Reformed and Hereditary and The Witch, you're going to like this movie. So I would recommend it to those people. Otherwise, you'll probably hate it, but it's one of those hit or miss movies. Thanks you for watching this review. I'm going to try to do some more new release reviews with all the stuff that's coming out and kind of expand on my channel that way. I know it's not for everybody, but those who did want to see these videos, I really appreciate you watching, and hopefully we can draw in some new viewers as well. And when this comes out on Blu-ray, I, of course, will talk about it and we'll review it again. It may even get a 4K release. We'll see. We'll see what happens. A 4K release could be very good for this because it looks like it was shot on film. Either that or it had a very, defined grain that they added afterwards for that look and feel. So I'd love to see it on 4K. But yeah, I appreciate everyone watching these different kind of videos I do, and I know that some like them, some don't care for them, but I appreciate those who do like them. I'll leave a link down in the description where you can get your Epix free trial. That's a good way to watch this. Otherwise, you can wait for the Blu-ray, and if you're in the UK, you can actually buy the Blu-ray now. It's region B locked, but I'll leave a link to that on Amazon UK as well, so you guys can grab it. But I'd recommend it. 7.5 out of 10. Really enjoyed my hour and 20 minutes with this movie, and I think it's well worth it. So yeah, that's about it. Make sure you follow me on social media, Instagram and TikTok. Check out all the other links down in my description, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest in videos. Really appreciate you guys watching. I hope you stay safe and stay healthy out there, and have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.